want to earn more? Work less and enjoy what you do each day. It's no secret, it can be done. This podcast with Dr. T will not only educate and inspire you, it will also teach you how to do more and be more with the time you already have. It will be like a shot of adrenaline straight into the heart of your business. Here is your host, Tyson Franklin.
Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of It's No Secret Dr. T. With me today is someone from New Jersey. His name is Andy Wang, and he also has a podcast called Inspired Money Podcast, but he runs a management or financial management company called Runnymede Capital Management. So, Andy, how are you doing this morning?
I am great, Dr. T. So great to be on the show.
Now, that name, Runnymede, I know off air before I pressed record, we were talking about it. But what's the story behind that particular name?
Well, there are two answers. One is whether you want the historical reference or if you want the real answer. Actually, they're both real answers. But the historical reference is that Runnymede, of course, is the location where the Magna Carta was signed. So here in the U.S., it's the precursor to our Bill of Rights and, a very good thing because that gave all of us liberties. And the I guess more casual answer is that Runnymede Road is the street where I grew up. And my father, we'll get into my family business, but my father started our business in 1993. And he was previously with the Bank of New York. And when he needed a company name, he said he didn't really have time, right? Like most small business owners who are trying to set up their business. There's so many things you're trying to get done. You're trying to go through incorporating the business and you're trying to get office space. He said getting a name was one of many things. So he didn't have the time and didn't want to go through the expense of having an extensive name search. So we grew up on Runnymede Road and he said, okay, Runnymede Capital Management. There aren't too many Runnymedes. There can't be many of them. So that's there you go.
No, well, that makes sense then. So you mentioned that it's a family business. So did your father start it with you guys all together, or was it something he was doing already? And as you got older, you then joined the business?
It was the latter. He started it on his own. As I mentioned, he was previously with the Bank of New York, which is one of the oldest banks in the United States. Founded by Alexander Hamilton. And my dad was director of research there for 10 years. He ran the research department, had about 200 institutions, mostly other banks, subscribing to their research. And then for another 10 years, he ran their money management subsidiary. So he was managing the bank's pension fund and other outside accounts, some institutions, some individuals. And coming from China to the United States at age 13 and having worked at a bank for over 20 years, the politics of a very large organization, his dream was to run his own business. So he hung up his shingle, started his own company, and was very fortunate to have the bank as among his first clients. So he was managing a small portion of their pension fund, but the only external manager. And I would subsequently join him. I joined in 98. And then my younger brother joined in 2003. So we have pretty much the whole family is here.
That's pretty cool.
Was not my intention. That was not by design or by plan. After graduating from school, I went off, I moved to Boston away from New Jersey and worked at a couple of different companies before joining my dad. So I think it's best of both worlds. I appreciate, I gained some outside experience, but then working with the family, I don't take it for granted that I don't have to worry about big inter-office politics. And I enjoy the pros of working with the family relative to the cons.
So on a day-to-day basis, your role in the business, what are you doing with your clients?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think like most small business owners, we wear many hats.
Yeah.
We do everything. Because it's we need to think about business development and sales and marketing. We work with our clients. So what we do at Runnymede is we are fee-only registered investment advisors. That means that we don't make commissions. We don't sell products. We are working with clients and get paid a fee. So we think that our incentive is aligned with theirs. We're helping to manage their money. So whether that's retirement accounts or non-retirement accounts, basically it's helping clients to manage their nest egg. It's investing in stocks and bonds, adjusting for what kind of risk they can accept. Are they retired? Are they working towards retirement? Like, how long do they have and how much risk can they take? We make those assessments and then help manage their money. And we're getting paid to grow their money and protect their money.
So when it comes to like financial planning or investing, what advice would you give people? You know, like some people think, oh, I'm too old now. I've let the run go too late to be investing. What would you say to that person?
Well, I like to say that it's never too late. Certainly, the data supports that the earlier you get started, time is on your side.
Yeah.
Because your money has two best friends. That's time and compound growth. So the earlier you get started, the better. But it's never too late. I mean, money is one of those things that we all have to live with. And you can't just write it off and say, oh, I'm looking at my money too late. There's nothing I can do. I mean, we have to live, right? You have to breathe. Yeah. You have to use your money.
There's no point saying I'm going to be in a ditch. I'm going to end up in a ditch because I didn't start investing.
Yeah, you've got to address it. Talk about it.
So if somebody's younger now, say they're just starting out in their working career, they might be in their early 20s, they're making, say, an average income, $30,000, $40,000. Where should they start when it comes to investing for the first time for the future? What tips and advice would you give them?
Well, I think that you should start, keep it as simple as possible, because the whole subject of investing can be extremely complex. And if you make it too complex, odds are you just talk yourself out of taking action, because it's like analysis paralysis. You don't want too much. So keep it as simple as possible. I actually don't know how, like, the retirement structure, like how it works in Australia. But in the United States, most companies these days, you don't have, it's less and less frequent that you have the pension funds that used to be the way that big companies promised you a retirement plan in retirement. These days, it's all self-directed 401k plans. So the majority of young people, you get a job and your first investment is going to be participating in your work retirement plan. So contributing some portion of your earnings so that you can do it automatically, right? Because you get a job, you're making some income, but inevitably you also want to spend your newfound money, and life gets in the way. It's like you have to pay to maintain your car, or you want to go out with your friends and you want to get some drinks. So the retirement plan's a great way, because you can set it up so that I'm going to contribute 10% of my paycheck to the retirement plan. And that way it's automated and you're not even thinking about it.
Okay, is that how it works in America? Like, so in Australia, for example, if somebody is an employee, they so over here you can have a self-managed super fund that you manage your own superannuation, which is your retirement fund. But if you're working for somebody else, the boss must pay. And I think at the moment it's 9.5% of your gross income gets paid into your super or retirement fund that you've actually set up. So you're saying over there in the States that you determine how much you want to go into your 401k.
Yeah, there are all kinds of different flavors for the retirement plan. But in most cases, yes, the employee has to contribute a certain amount. And then depending on the employer, many companies will match a certain amount to encourage employees to contribute. So it's like the first 6% that you contribute into your plan of your own money, the company will match that.
So if you contribute nothing, so you have the option of saying, no, I don't want to contribute anything to it.
That's correct.
Oh, that's
In
crazy.
which case, yeah, it's crazy because then, the advice that people like me as an advisor say, you're giving up free money because the company, if you contribute X percent, the company's giving you up to that amount, and you don't want to give that up. Don't forego that free money.
So Andy, I think that's really good, about retirement funds and that type of thing. So you've set up a podcast called Inspired Money Podcast. Have you set that up because you're trying to educate your own clients further and just the broader community in general?
Yeah, the podcast has been really interesting because I feel like I'm a latecomer into the podcasting world. I discovered podcasts late and started as a listener first. And as far as our business is concerned, the podcast sort of fit in because my brother and I have been experimenting with content marketing and launched a business blog, started writing articles on our blog that does drive traffic to our website. So it helps people to find us. As I started listening to more podcasts, and I loved the sort of on-demand, I can listen to whatever I want. So on my drives to and from work, instead of listening to talk radio and commercials, I could actually listen to what I wanted. So in many cases, it was business-related podcasts. Some of them are entertainment, but most of it was like for small business owners. So your podcast fits into my interest perfectly. I'm definitely a listener.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so Inspired Money. One day I said, I'm listening to so many podcasts. I think it would be fun to do one myself. So one to sort of address some client questions, but I think it's been a little bit more broad than that. It's just been talking to all kinds of different people, different backgrounds, different professions, and a little bit philosophical in that it's like, what is money all about? Like, how do you make your money more inspired? And the idea is that most people don't address their money enough. Like, we don't talk about money enough. It's often something that's neglected and put on the back burner because the daily distractions that happen, like emails and phone calls and picking up our kids from school, it's like the last thing we do is address our finances. And then by that time, you're tired at the end of the day and you say, okay, I'm going to go to bed. I'll take care of it tomorrow. And as we were saying, the earlier you actively invest and plan for your money, the better. So yeah, it's about trying to have conversations about money and interesting conversations.
Yeah, well, I listened to a couple of episodes, but there was one thing that stood out to me when I was listening to one of your review episodes, I think, was at the beginning of this year, and you're talking about your best episodes in 2018. And the guest that was on there was talking about tracking your finances instead of doing up a budget and saying, oh, this is what we're going to allocate to go to the movies and this is what we're going to allocate for just general entertainment. It was just track what you're spending, and when you review what you're spending, when you're looking at what you're tracking, you can then start making adjustments and cutting back. And I thought that was a brilliant tip.
Yeah, that was a fun one. That was Peter Polson, who is CEO of Tiller, I think it's Tiller Money, and sort of a fintech company because they use spreadsheets. It's like he actually was planning on creating some kind of app, right? Because so many of us have a smartphone now. So it's all about apps. And he did the research. He was trying to figure out what kind of app can we build that will help people to track their money and budget better. And by some roundabout way, after his market research, he said, you know what? There's this big percentage of people who love spreadsheets. And it's customizable. People can use it. And once they use it, they just love it because they can adjust the layout to however they want. So it's kind of like this old-fashioned way of, he allows you to use spreadsheets, but then he can help you connect to your bank and your credit cards and automate it so that it all populates and makes it easier. But yeah, you're right. His advice was, instead of budgeting, don't think about budgeting first. Just track it, because if you're tracking your spending, we as humans, we're going to want to do better just by looking at it. You're going to identify areas where you say, wow, I can't believe that I spent this much on groceries, or I spent this much on going out. I can definitely trim some and make a difference here. And he says over time, when you're tracking, you can't help but to want to do better. And then you start spending more aligned with your values. So good things happen.
So do you think a lot of people get themselves in financial trouble because they don't track where they're spending their money? They're just spending it. They have no budget. They don't track anything. Money comes in, money comes out. They get a big bill. They panic. They somehow find the money on a credit card, and this debt just grows over a period of time.
That's absolutely yes. Because if you ask most people, how much money do you make? Most people know. Most people know the answer. That's easy.
Yeah.
But if you ask them, where are you spending your money every month? So many people say, I don't really know. So that's what it comes down to. That's why, that's why it's advisable to just start tracking what you're spending. And you don't have to do like so granularly with so many categories, because that's something that I have made a mistake with in the past. It's like I started using Intuit's Quicken, and I wanted to put in all these different categories, which just made it difficult to do. So if you just pick like simple categories, it's like saving and then the essentials. So it's like your house, your car, food. Then from there, then you can start adding some little categories. But if you just have like 4 or 5, then you can really see what's important.
I think it's obvious when somebody doesn't have control of their finances, when they can change jobs or get a promotion, and next thing they get a $10,000 or $15,000 pay rise, and within 3 months, nothing has changed because the money has just been chewed up through not keeping track of where the money's going.
That's right. Yeah. They always call it it's like lifestyle creep, I think. It's like the more money you make, if you're not keeping track, you're still spending. So you could double your income, but suddenly you find that you're still not saving anything just because you started spending more on a monthly basis, because it just happens naturally. But if you're paying attention, then you're more conscious and more conscientious about, are you saving? And those who budget religiously, they say that, it may sound confining because you feel like, oh, I can't go out for dinner on Friday night. But they said it's actually the opposite, that it's quite freeing because you're knowing where you're spending your money and you feel okay when you spend your money because there's visibility there. You say, I know that I've saved X percent this month, so therefore I can go out to dinner. I can treat myself I can treat myself, can go out for a date night, and knowing is valuable.
But I think that's important though. If people are saying to themselves, oh, wow, I can't go out Friday night, I don't have the money, then the answer should be, that's right. You can't go out on Friday night because you don't have the money. Stop spending money that you don't have. And if people do that on a regular basis, if they really stopped spending money they didn't have, financially they'd be in so much better position. Definitely.
Actually, my family and I were on vacation in November. We took this cruise. We were on a Disney cruise.
Oh, that would be cool.
It was fun. It was not inexpensive.
Yeah.
Mickey Mouse knows how to get your money. But
yeah.
I met a family from Australia. I actually hope to get them onto my podcast because fascinating family. Both parents worked. They have 3 kids. But they're really good about tracking their money. And they said that when we met them, they were on like a 6-week trip where they were going on a cruise. They were going to Disney World. They were going to Disneyland. And they said it was possible not because they're wealthy, but they're teaching their kids, like, on Friday, do you want to go out for pizza or do you want to save it to go on this Disney trip? And they like to plan a big trip somewhere around the world, like every 2 years. So they go into like a saving cycle, and then they go on a big trip. and do something as a family, and they learn a lot. They visit different places. And that's because that's a priority for their family. That's something they want to do together.
Well, yeah, I think it's a great idea. And I do believe that travel, whether you do it domestically or internationally, I think travel and spending time with your family and building up those memories are far more important than pizza and fast food and clothes. Yeah, because I like I said, always say, on your deathbed, you're not going to remember the wardrobe that you have, but you will remember the memories you'll have with your family. So I think in putting money aside to spend time with your family, whether it involves travel or it's just having a tent and being by a lake, I just think that's really important. And it's having the money to be able to take the time off as well from your job or your work.
Yeah, that's a good point. When you're breathing your last breath and your life is flashing before you, you want visions of your family and doing meaningful activities, not you buying another shirt.
That threw me. I'm just picturing you lying on your deathbed and you're going, "Damn it, I'm going to miss that."
Right,
blue.
you're like,
I'm going to miss that blue shirt.
Another pair of khaki pants. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm going to miss that blue shirt. I'll never get to wear that blue shirt again. And your son's going, "But what about the time with me?" Yeah, it was okay, but that blue shirt, that was a one of a kind. So, with when you're working with your clients, and you'll talk about where they are in their financial situations, and making sure they're probably putting a certain amount away for saving, and they're looking after their retirement. Like in America, 401k. Over here, it's their superannuation in Australia. And do you encourage? What type of investments do you like yourself, or is there certain investments you say to your clients, these are safe bets? Well, there's no safe bet.
Our investment philosophy is really to invest in companies that have consistent earnings growth. If we can find companies that are making money, making money matters.
It does.
I don't need to tell you that. As a business person that, even if you're a kid and you have a lemonade stand, it's like you're having fun, but you also want to be profitable. You need to make sure that you're not spending more on your organic lemons than you are collecting per cup, right? You need to make money. And as investors, I've found, and this is what has been taught to me from my father, and it comes from his experience as an analyst of businesses and director of research. He visited hundreds of companies in his career, really trying to understand, what is it that, what are the growth drivers in a business that, can give the investor some confidence and reassurance that the company is going to be able to execute a growth plan. And then second to that is, who are the management in charge? Can those people, do they have the experience to execute their growth plan? And so we talk to companies, we look for companies whose management we believe in and whose companies have some sort of advantage, whether it's, geographical or they have a unique product or service. But companies who can grow their earnings consistently over time, their stock price should be more valuable down the road. So essentially, earnings and stock price should be correlated. If the earnings are going up, then the stock price should go up too. And as analysts, we just want to do a little homework to understand what's driving growth, and then what are the risk factors to their growth plan. What are the chances that it's not going to, what's going to be the wrench that could hinder them in the next year or so. And then if we have confidence in the next 3 to 5 years, then we say, all right, this is a company that we're willing to own. And for us, it's a little bit of a mix because we also invest in exchange traded funds or index funds, which is, very low cost, owning the entire market, S&P 500 as an example. But we like to do a little bit of both. It's it's sort of a mix. We like owning solid companies that are growing their earnings because over time we've seen, very wealthy individuals. They've grown their fortune because they've believed in these companies. They're able to hold these companies through the tougher times. And as those companies grow, they're growing their earnings. They tend to pay out dividends that are increasing. They'll have stock splits over time. Those are all things that really are rewarding to shareholders. So holding a portfolio of great companies in different industries and sectors, and then we'll also have some S&P 500 in there too for like broad diversification. And then we can also sell some of the S&P 500 if we think that the business cycle is changing. If we're going to go through a major bear market, we can change the allocation. So a client's account can become it can be positioned more defensively, and then, we can reinvest that later.
No, I think it's good advice, and it's safe advice. And before, when I said a safe bet, that sounded terrible because no bet is safe. so it's, I should have said a safe investment, not a safe bet.
Safe bet. Well,
terminology.
I don't know. Somehow the gambling terminology is frequently used in my industry. And you're right. Maybe it shouldn't be. It depends what you own, but it's not uncommon.
So one thing I was going to ask was when you talked about, you look for companies that have got good management teams and probably a reputation of working with companies and producing good profits year after year. Now, if that same management team or certain people that have done well in the past, if they're kicking off, say, a new IPO or something like that, like it's a startup business, about to hit the stock market, and the people behind it, do you recommend investing in those type of things, or no, wait, because we like to see companies that actually have profits year after year, so you're actually going to get a dividend?
I think it's important. I mean, I prefer to see some sort of track record, right, in the new company, but understanding where the leadership comes from, that's important. Sometimes we use the analogy. It's like if you take an A student and they switch schools, chances are, there's no guarantee, but chances are they'll continue being an A student.
Yeah.
And, alternatively, if you take a D student, just because you change schools. So if you take someone with a very bad track record in the corporate world, just because they move to a new corporation, the chances of them like turning it around and suddenly becoming an A student, not that likely, right? So
Yeah.
We look at things like that just to get a sense. It's like, in addition, when you're looking at a management team, it's like, did they come from an outside company, or have they been at the company for a really long time and sort of developed from within, right? Developed and promoted from within the company, so that they're very familiar with the business, the culture, things like that.
Okay, so there's a lot to look at when it comes, and this is why they always say, like, if you're buying and selling your own shares, it's sometimes difficult because you've got someone like yourself who's doing this on a daily basis, who's doing the research and is doing a lot of the study, and there's so much to sway your decision one way or another. But so if you had somebody who was like an A student, as you use that analogy, and they were going into a new IPO, you'd assume that probably they're going to have a certain skills that it's more likely to be successful than a failure, but it's still, there's no guaranteed profits or that the business will survive. So they're the sort of things you would tell your client, that this is more risky than another business. Yeah,
I think it just gives you some level of confidence. It's like, what are the chances that this person's going to be able to succeed? Like, are they going to be able to repeat the skills and the things that they learned from previous experience? Will this new company benefit from that? I mean, I think it's not too different from whether you are coaching some of your business clients, or when you had your podiatry practice and you're trying to select a fellow podiatrist who's going to be leading a new office. It's like you're trying to ascertain, like, what are the odds that, one, they're going to listen to you? Because I've listened to some of your shows where you had offices where the person was listening to your advice and things that, right, the strengths of your brand and your company and your marketing approach versus those who don't listen.
Yeah.
Those things are important. Like if you have leadership, because you can't be at every single location, right? You need the right people. You need the right team. You need team players, and you hopefully you have someone following a plan.
Yeah. Well, when you were talking about people that will do what you've told them and some that don't, yeah, it makes a huge difference because you can have everything there that they're supposed to do, but you can't make people do the right thing when you're not watching. That's part of integrity, I reckon, is doing the right thing when nobody's watching. And I think a lot of companies, on the stock market too, I think once they hit the stock market, they know everybody's watching. So they've got to make sure they're trying to be doing the right thing all the time.
Well, yeah, and that one's tough to measure. It's tough to measure integrity. I mean, integrity kind of surfaces over time. It's like you can recognize, is someone operating with integrity or not? But it's very difficult to know if you just pick a point in time, right? Whether or not there's integrity there and you can trust what the person's saying.
Yeah, I know. So I'm gonna do a little bit. We're gonna take a bit of a deviation here because I was on your website, and you had a section on there about buying local. And I noticed it on Facebook first, actually, that you kept mentioning on your Runnymede Facebook page. There was a kickboxing school that you were sort of promoting that was in New Jersey, and this led to like the whole buying local sort of thing, and that's a movement that you've sort of got behind. And I actually think buying local is really important, but sometimes it's not always practical. What's your thinking on it?
Well, maybe I can sit here and chat with you, and you can be my business coach because it's an experiment. This was an idea that my brother came up with, and we've never been natural salespeople, like natural sales and marketing people. It's like we're a small business. We get some referrals. But when it comes to content marketing, like that's an experiment for us. But it's been an experiment and something that we've been willing to try. So I think it was about 4 years ago we launched a business blog, and I was the last person who thought that a financial advisor should be writing a blog. I'm like, who wants to read some of these articles? They're kind of dry, they're boring.
Yeah.
But I was willing to experiment, and I found that by answering client questions or prospective client questions that people do find us. I mean, I get calls from people all over the United States, mostly domestic, not so much from overseas, but people who read an article that I've written or my brother's written, and they'll call us up and, have a conversation. They want to know more. They want to know about our business. So it does work. And, the podcast was part of that progression. It was like, okay, I'm writing. Now I said, I really enjoy listening to podcasts. Let me start my own podcast and talk to different guests and get our brand name out there in a different way. For people who don't like to read, maybe they like to listen. And the content's a little bit different, but I thought it would be fun just to build a podcast and a different audience. And then Buy Local New Jersey was my brother's idea. He said, you know what? He really likes the idea of supporting local business. And one of the big reasons is as we drive around our like downtown local towns, like downtown Main Street, there are many vacant retail shops. And I think that part of that is because of Amazon and ordering things online.
Oh, true.
A lot of the retail stores have, retail stores either have not succeeded locally or landlords raise the rent on them and they can't afford to stay there. Some of them are restaurants. So like in our area, we've seen like long time popular restaurants who their rent went up significantly, and they said, "Oh, we just couldn't afford to continue." So we don't want to have a Main Street that is like 50% empty buildings. We haven't reached that point, but potentially it's not a good thing. I mean, the local business owners definitely add characters to the towns and the cities. And those are the places, those are the gathering places for residents to go. It's like my wife and I can go for dinner, or our family can go together for dinner. Or the business owners often also support local causes, local charities. And there's this like recycling of the money, whether when you support local business, that money creates more local jobs, and those local business owners also reinvest into the community and have a direct interest in supporting the community, right? They want to make the community better because oftentimes those local business owners, their kids are in the local schools too, and they're part of the community. They're ingrained in the community. So my brother said, what if we interview business owners? Because we're small business owners, and most businesses do not have a marketing asset. They don't have a video where somebody's interviewing them that they can put on their website or put onto Facebook, share it on social media. So my brother said, why don't we go out and interview different business owners, spotlight their businesses? It's all part of the buy local movement to promote small business in our communities. And then I think that we hope that it'll have some benefit for us as well, because it's not going to hurt us to make friends with other business owners in the community. And it's a really interesting way to go about doing that. Like, rather than us roaming around aimlessly or just going into a store and buying something, it's very different for me to go into a store and say, hey, we have this buylocalnj.com. We want to interview you. We want to feature your business. We'll give you the video. And it's been really fun and well received by the business owners that we've featured so far.
I think it's a great idea. It's a brilliant way of actually creating content. And like you said, I don't think there's any negative to doing what you're doing. There's no way you could go around interview 50 businesses in a year, and some way people go, yeah, no, that's going to harm your business. It's,
right.
It's just it couldn't work that way. But I think it's a great way of creating content for your own website and making connections.
Yeah, I think that's what it comes down to. It's making connections, making friends, and it never hurts to make more friends. But we did sort of, we were torn a little bit at the beginning. Before we started, we said, this could have its own website and stand on its own. Is it strange to have Buy Local NJ, these videos, live on a financial advisor's website? Like, it doesn't quite fit. Is that a strange thing? But last year I was in this 2-day mastermind group, and I posed that question to the group, and most of the people were all online, like successful online business people.
Yeah.
And they unanimously told me, definitely put it on your website. And the reason is that you, as a financial advisor, it makes it more personal, that you're having these conversations with other people and you're showing that there's this other side to you. They think that's a positive. They're like, don't worry about the fact that interviewing small businesses and putting that on a financial advisor's website. They're like, no doubt. They think that I should put it on. So that's how we've done it. And no one's called foul yet.
Nobody's rung you up and said, oh, I'm just probably fine. There's the only people that would be annoyed are the ones that you haven't actually interviewed yet, who are like, why aren't I on there? What was so good about their business and not mine? But I think long term, I think the more of these that you do and the more you put on your website, the more of it'd be no different to anybody being interviewed out of the blue on something feels pretty good about it. And then what do? They tell their friends and family about it. Hey, I was interviewed on this. It's going to be here. Go and check it out. And then when people check it out, all of a sudden that brings a link back to your particular business. So I think it's a brilliant idea what you're doing there. But I also think just the buying local movement it's a great movement. Forget about the content strategy and what it's doing for your business. I know there's a lot of people who want to buy local, but sometimes, people will buy online because it's cheaper, unfortunately. Well, fortunately for your wallet, but I also think, some businesses that are local need to lift their game. If people can buy a product cheaper somewhere else online, but they can't provide the service that you could probably provide. So I think people got to change their way they approach their clientele.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I think that in talking to small business owners, all small business owners, I think, love talking about their businesses because hopefully they're passionate about it. And they love to share why they started their business, what they love about their business. And the funny thing is that most often their family and friends, they don't want to hear about it anymore because they're like, I've heard these stories a million times. Yeah. I don't want to hear these stories. So the business owner really wants to share. And we have a unique opportunity to sit down with them, even just for a short form 5 to 10 minute video interview and chat with them. It's like, tell us about your business, who you're serving, why did you start the business? And then we kind of keep it loose. But one of the final questions is, why is supporting the community important to you? Because we've found that everyone we've talked to, they're big supporters of local charities and helping to support either by donating products, services, or financially supporting. So it's all very positive.
Yeah, but I do think what you're doing there with the Buy Local, the Inspired Money podcast, creating content outside of the normal boring financial planning industry. I'm not saying what you do is boring, but you said it yourself, I think.
Oh, it can be.
Hopefully you said it before, and I'm not bagging you, but but it is. When you think financial planning and that type of thing, it's one of these industries that, people go, wow, I feel like sitting down and reading a really, really good financial planning blog tonight. So that's what I'm going to do before I go to sleep. But having people listening to your podcast and they enjoy the guests that are on there and the things you're writing about local businesses that you're putting out on social media, it all feeds back into the website where people go, okay, these guys are doing things a little bit different. And I think a lot of businesses can actually learn from what you're doing is using podcasting and coming up with other ways of connecting with people and bringing people back to the website so they can see the services that they actually offer.
Well, that's what I'm really enjoying about the Buy Local NJ thing right now, because we're kind of stumbling around with video. We don't totally know what we're doing. We learn as we go.
Yeah.
We have we bring in a camera, a little light, and try to have half decent audio. And my brother and I, neither of us have a background in video editing or production, but you learn by doing. And I think that the fun part is that it's like there are 600,000 plus podcasts out there. Like, it's hard to, even though we have these technology and tools to increase our reach or to build an audience, it's still hard. It's hard to be noticed. And starting local, all the marketing gurus always say to niche down, right? It's like, pick your niche so that you can start small. And if you start small, then maybe people can find you. And then from there, you can grow. So I think starting local, you really can't start any smaller. It's like, I told my brother, I said, we've been going around to some different towns, but the reality is, if we picked one town, we could probably spend an entire year just on one town if we wanted to. So there are different ways of going about it. But I like the fact that it immediately translates into face-to-face time with somebody. It's like we're meeting business owners, and then it gives us reason to talk to business associations. Without the Buy Local NJ video interviews, it's like I'm trying to sell myself as a financial advisor, and usually the reception is like, oh, we've got 30 financial advisors, which includes financial planners, insurance salespeople. It's a very big group, and they say, oh, we really don't need another financial person in our group. So it's kind of cool that we can go in and say, all right, I'm a financial advisor, but we also have this, this platform where we want to spotlight local businesses. And then suddenly people's eyes sort of light up and say, oh, you know what? You should speak to so-and-so, and we'll make an introduction. Or there's like a small business development association, which is a sort of a government entity. And I've been talking to them, and the woman said, oh, we should really partner because some of the businesses that I work with, it would be a good fit. I can introduce you to them. And, you know how important relationships are and making connections. And, you're not going to work with everybody, but you make friends and you make relationships, and friends recommend other friends. So we hope to see really good things coming out of it. It's new for us. We've only been doing it really like for a month and a half, 2 months.
I think it's great, though. I do think long term you will really see benefits from it, because it's like that law of reciprocity, where you go and interview these businesses and you put the spot, you shine the light on them and you let them be the star of the video, of the blog that you're putting out there, on social media. And in return, somebody comes up to them and says, looking for a financial planner, do you know anybody? Well,
right. Yeah.
Are they going to, if they don't have a financial planner they already use, who are they going to recommend? The person that actually made them shine. So to me, it's, you do something good for, and the thing is, I think you should do good things for people, not expecting to get a return. You should never, I don't think you should ever be doing it going, oh, I'm doing this because I want a return. It's just, you should be doing it because you want to do it, and it's a good idea, and it does build the profile of your business. But whether that one individual sends people, I think that's not necessarily what you're after, but I think it will happen.
Yeah, I think that if we don't have the right motivation, it becomes difficult to keep it up, because creating the content consistently is not easy. So odds are you have to love it, and you have to have the right motivation and incentive. Otherwise, on those days where you get busy and you don't want to hit record, you're not going to do it. But yeah, so far it's been fun. I think my wife thinks I'm a little crazy because certain mornings I drop off one or two of my kids at school, and I tell my wife, oh, now I have to go to this gym to go interview this guy, or I'm going to the toy store.
But I think even with your podcast, and I've said to a lot of people that, whether they're health professionals in different towns and all that, it surprises me how many businesses don't do podcasting that should, because they could build so many business connections. So say, for example, say it was Cairns, my local area. If somebody if another business set up a podcast called the ABC podcast, whatever it was, and it was their business that was setting up, they went around interviewing other business people in town, and it's sponsored by their business, for example, who's the main sponsor of the show. Every time somebody listens to that show, their business is going to get recognized in that local area. And people aren't doing it. It's a cheap marketing. Podcasting is a cheap way to market your business.
Yeah, podcasting has been a lot of fun. I've definitely been drinking the podcasting Kool-Aid for the past, I don't know, it's been a little over a year. But truth be told, I don't think podcasting is easy. Like, there's definitely low barrier to entry. Like, anyone can get started. But it's competitive, and if you truly want to create a good show, like you want to deliver decent sound quality, you want to have compelling content week after week, or whatever your frequency of publishing is, it's not easy. But on the other hand, like, selfishly, I could say that I've really enjoyed running the podcast. Like, one, creating the show, conceptualizing the show. Right now, I do everything. I book the guests, I edit, I publish, I do the social media posts to market it. But without the podcast, I wouldn't be able to talk to these really interesting people for 45 minutes to 60 minutes. I mean, I got to chat with you, Tyson, But I've also talked to Tony Horton, who created the P90X
Oh, yeah, I've heard of
workout
him.
videos. Because, like, my belief is that we all have to live and deal with our money. And it's like, it's our choice whether we handle our money well or poorly. But having Inspired Money podcast, I can basically talk to anyone. And it gives me an excuse to approach people and ask them if they're willing to talk to me. But yeah, just variety. Like, I talked to Colin O'Brady, a young guy from Portland, Oregon. He went to Yale. He was a student athlete. He was going to go to Wall Street, but upon graduation, he said, he really didn't grow up with much money, and he wanted to travel. So he bought a one-way ticket to Asia. He was going to go on this, 3 or 6 month trip around the world. Had a freak accident in Thailand where he was fire jumping rope, which is something that they do apparently, and they encourage
as you do,
the tourists to try it. In a freak accident, he got the kerosene on his legs, burned 25% of his body, and the doctors told him that he would never. It was highly unlikely that he would ever walk again. He ended up winning the Chicago Triathlon 18 months after returning home. That was after being in the hospital for 3 months, and then became a professional triathlete. He won. He didn't win, but he completed the Explorers Grand Slam, which is hiking the highest peak of every continent, plus a North and South Pole expedition. And he did that in 39 days, which was the fastest ever. Fewer than 50 humans have ever completed the Explorers Grand Slam. And then just this December, he became the first person to have a solo trek across Antarctica, which I don't remember. He did it in 50-some days, but no one had done that previously. So I got to talk to him. I mean, he's a 4-time world record holder now.
But that's what I mean. And that's what I like about podcasting as well. It opens doors to people that, one, you didn't know needed opening. But very few people you will contact and say, "Hey, I would wonder if you'd be a guest on my podcast," say no. So it's a great way of connecting with people. But I think as a marketing tool, if anybody's thinking about podcasting, really give it some serious thought, because it doesn't mean that you're going to be the next greatest podcaster in the world that everybody's going to know and they're going to bow to you when you walk into a room, even though that happens to us too all the time.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah.
We're always signing autographs.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, but there's reporters out the front of my house now, but it's as a concept and as a marketing tool for your business. I think it's a great way of just letting people know you're there. It's people can hear about your business while you're sleeping. People can be listening to you talk, which I think is great. So, Andy, I've got one final question for you before we sign off, and it's my Monday morning tip. So somebody bumps into you Monday morning, and they go, "Andy, I heard you on It's No Secret with Dr. T, my favorite podcast." And I was wondering, I've been working for a few years now, and I'm thinking that I'm going to see a financial planner. How do I know? What tip would you give me Monday morning to start getting my finances in order?
Oh gosh. Well, if it's financial related, I say don't watch the news too much, because the more you watch the news, it's so sensationalized and tries to frighten you every day. So try not to watch the news. Try to slow down and just be intentional and deliberate about what you're doing. Like, take a look at your own situation, figure out where you want to go. And you have to do your best to filter out the noise, because I feel like there's so much noise out there. I mean, we're blessed to live in a time where we have so much information at our fingertips through Google and other places. But sometimes it's important to slow down and really just simplify things. Separate from that, and maybe this is less related to looking at your finances, I do believe in the saying, do one thing every day that scares you, to get out of your comfort zone. I think that's where the magic happens. You can really make significant changes in your life. So I love that saying.
Yeah, so do I. I do that. Yeah, I've heard somebody else say that once. Just do something every day that scares you, and I also think it's every week. Just try and learn something. Try and learn a new little skill you didn't have at the beginning of the week. And if you do that for 52 weeks in a year, you're going to be a lot more skillful at the end of it all. So, Andy,
yeah, that's for sure.
Thank you for being on It's No Secret with Dr. T. I've learned heaps. This has been a fun conversation, and you have one of the sexiest podcast voices going around in the airwaves, I think. You just have this natural.
Well, thank you.
You just got this natural voice. I think it sounds fantastic, and yeah, we will. I'm sure we'll talk again. We never got to talk about your guitar playing, your love of Hawaiian music, and a few other things. So I'm sure I'll have to get you back on it at some time, and we'll pick a different topic, and then I can harass you more about guitar playing and Hawaiian music. Yeah,
next time I'll tell you how that's me getting out of my comfort zone, because I used to get like the worst stage fright. I'd have like a heart attack if I had to play in front of anyone.
Yeah.
And I've actually had experiences of playing in front of like 400 people by myself and live to tell about it.
It didn't kill you.
It didn't kill me.
No, well, there's proof. Okay, Andy, thank you very much.
Thank you, Tyson. So much fun.
Well, I hope you enjoyed listening to Andy today. I know that I did. And just remember, his podcast is called Inspired Money Podcast. It is worth checking out. It is really, you learn so much from every single episode. And I think if you've thought about investing and you haven't done much investing yourself in the past, start listening to shows that are going to educate you. And Inspired Money Podcast is definitely one of those podcasts that will definitely educate you, and you'll learn something from every episode. But there were two things that Andy said that I think are worth mentioning again. One was, it's never too late to start. And if you are investing, just make sure that what you're investing in, there's growth and there's a return on what you're actually doing. Now, if you're risky, if you're younger, then maybe taking more risk may suit your financial plan. If you're a little bit older, maybe you need to stick to something that's a little bit more conservative. You want growth, and you want to know that they're actually making money. And you want to make sure that the management team knows what they're talking about. So just remember, it's never too late. And also, think about shopping local. Is there a supplier in your area that is doing great things, and you do not need to go online? Have a search around before you jump online and buy from somewhere overseas or buy from somewhere interstate. Is there someone local? Because if you support the local businesses, that money comes back in your community. So just keep that top of mind. So before I go, I'd just like to remind you, if you're enjoying this podcast, It's No Secret with Dr. T, please leave a review on iTunes or whatever your favorite podcast platform is. I would love to know what you think. And it's also social proof. It tells other people that this podcast is worth listening to. And even though I say sometimes a 3-star review is better than no review at all, it's not really. We want 5-star reviews every single time. And finally, share the love. If you have friends that you think would benefit from this podcast, please let them know. So before I go, I just want to leave you with a quote to ponder on for the following week. A leader takes people where they want to go. A great leader takes people where they don't want to go, but ought to be. So think about that for the next week. Are you a leader, or are you not a leader within your business? Okay, that's it from me. Look after yourself, look after your family, and I will talk to you again next week. Bye for now.